I'm sorry. Are we live, Tammy?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll open the meeting at 7 o'clock, starting up with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Up next is roll call. So John?
Here.
Paulette?
Here.
Claire?
Here.
And the Vice President is here. And let the record reflect that President Elves is delayed, but should hopefully be here before the end of the meeting. Up next is open forum for agenda items only pursuant to 4246(6)D, maximum of 3 minutes per person. Is there anybody wishing to speak? Yeah, you can go.
I'm not sure if that mic is on.
I'm Richard Grubb, sounds on. 23 Fowler Street, North Smithfield. Sorry about the way I'm dressed. I wasn't planning to talk. But I will reiterate 2 points that I'm concerned about with the police station, and I'm very much in favor of having a wonderful police station. But number one, there was a grant mentioned in May. I brought this up before. We applied for up to $20 million, and then the word is always, well, we gotta wait, we gotta wait. Okay, if we gotta wait, we should at least answer the question, what happens if we get the money? Does everything change? Or should we have a contingency plan in place in the first place for what if we get the money or a portion of the money? Okay, that's one thing. The other thing is, the more I watch what goes on, the more I'm concerned that we don't have the big picture. We have a lot of projects or potential projects in town. They're expensive. They rely on expensive labor. And we try to make these decisions, I think, a little bit in a vacuum because we don't have the big picture budget. So those would be my two concerns. I would really push for a budget. I'd love to help in any way I can. I'm not an expert, but I'm friendly. So that's all I got.
Doug, I can address that real quick, though, sir.
Mr. Grubb?
I can address that. That $20 million is off the table now. It's dead. Reason being is it was $20 million. You had a shot at it if you were building a new police station that was for the construction of a new police station, or $1 million towards a rehab. We got the $1 million, not the 20.
Oh, this president.
I don't want to argue what you and I have disagreed on this, the vote. I don't believe the vote was a rejection of a new police station.
Well, either way, the point is we're not building a new police station, so that
So we didn't have an opportunity to say we'd like to build one if we can have the 20.
doesn't work that way, I guess.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to speak? Going once, twice. Okay. Moving on. Up next, discussion, vote, or other action on list of repairs at police station. First up is review of punch list completion by Dubon Masonry.
I will address that if you'd like. So I
Yep.
included in your packet the punch list that was sent by Tecton. They are still on this project overseeing until this punch list is complete. And the chief this morning sent out some photos of things that were, that he felt still needed to be addressed. We can go through this real briefly, just so people know. There was the final wash down of the exterior brick. The other, number 2, was a general cleanup of the front yard, coordinate stockpile location for existing granite signage and medallions, reset existing monument, coordinate with owner, fence removal by owner, site area should be returned to its previous condition, contractor to provide loam and seed and replant shrubs as required. Now, I'll just turn it over to Mr. Pendergast for that number 2. There has been some movement on that today or yesterday for the removal of the granite.
Monday.
Oh, Monday?
So that was, I had a crew go down there and remove all of that. I spoke to Mr. Reynolds prior to that, so we arranged to have that taken care of. And the brick that's still in a pile there, that's the stuff they're gonna be using presently that they started, I believe yesterday they started
Okay,
that work. I know there was a little issue with the staging, which
Oh,
which the chief took care of with one of their representatives this afternoon, so that'll be rectified. Something that was blocking the handicapped accessibility into the
Okay.
building, which you can't have. So that was corrected. The chief's really kind of on top of that over there. When I spoke to Mr. Reynolds from Dubon, the sprinkler that they ripped up is gonna be fixed by them. And I told him we'll do a walkthrough before we consider what type of bushes and shrubbery we're gonna put back.
Oh, okay.
So we may not put everything, they'll do whatever we want, but I don't really see a big need for that right now until we kind of see where we're going with the whole thing. But they're gonna lumen seed the whole place and get it ready for my people to get in there.
okay, all right, great. And you said you took the monument and everything is that at DPW now?
Yes, it is. It's
Okay.
secured in our back lot.
All right, so then at some point, we may want to put, I don't know what we'll do with that, the Bushy School sign, if you will, but I think the other monument was going to be reset
the-
by them.
I believe it's Chief Freitas.
Chief
Yes, it
Freitas,
is.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure where that is. I don't know if somebody was taking that to rehab it, refinish it or something. I'm not quite sure. We
Okay.
don't have that.
Oh, you don't have that? Because they were going to, I think they may have left it there then, because they were going to reset it from, because it just was taken down so as not to be
Oh, then
hit
we-
by anything.
And maybe we do
So
have
then-
it then, because I think there were 4 pallets of stuff we brought back.
Okay.
So it probably
Okay, you
is.
might,
Okay.
yeah. I think they probably were not going to do the resetting until all the lawn was done and the sprinkler, whatever,
Okay.
that had to be done. Okay, thank you. The third item was the patch topping at the exterior ramp. Number 4 was provide caulking at the exterior ramp. So this is the handicapped accessible ramp. There is some work that has to be done in that area, and they're aware of it. They're going to be doing that. Clean up the angled steps in the metal fascia. Both sides should be symmetrical and match, and they have done that. Remove beam hanger bracket at first floor classroom. That was put in for the, when they did the boring into the brick, and they're removing that. Provide tie-down guy wires for existing antenna. That is complete. Number 8 was clean up ceiling tiles of roofing material from re-roofing work. Coordinate locations with owner. I believe we've talked to the chief about that, and I think you may be aware that Dubon is planning on taking those drop ceiling tiles that are pretty much covered with roofing material from having put the new roof on. And then DPW will put the new ceiling tiles back. Is that the intention?
That is.
Yeah, okay, good. And then the last item, I believe, is the sprinkler, fix the sprinkler line that was damaged during construction. Have they been notified of where that was, or have you been told they're gonna do that?
And that's what I spoke to Mr. Reynolds about. They're going to take care of that,
They
so.
are gonna take care of that with the seed and loom, okay. So that's the punch list. And we have given them permission to do some repointing of the brick on the other side of the building, so that's what they're doing right now. So that should be finished, maybe 2 weeks, I don't know. But given the weather, maybe.
Was that for the second item, additional brickwork?
Yeah,
2
so
weeks?
that was the not to exceed 85,000, and so the brickwork on the sides of the building and the back of the building, to make sure that the envelope is completely
Right.
secured.
Okay. And then after this punch list is complete, does that finish the contract with Tecton, or?
That's what they told us, yeah. Now, I did ask, I know that Rebecca had a bereavement, Rebecca from Tecton, I don't know what happened, but she was away for a bit. And she did reach out to me, and she said that I said, well, if we were, because the discussion had come up at some point, that if we wanted to move forward with the project, that we'd want to have someone oversee it, and we thought maybe Tecton would be good to provide that availability. And she hasn't sent anything to me yet, but I did ask her to submit a proposal, just for us to review at some point if we think it would be useful to have sort of a clerk of the works, as they're doing right now, to make sure this punch list is.
And that's the original company that started
Tecton,
everything?
yeah.
The one with no background in municipal buildings?
No, this is.
That's
No,
not, okay,
no.
just, I don't even think of that.
Tecton's the one who designed the new police station.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Paulette. Up next, if there's no other discussion, is discussion, vote, or other action on renovation plan 2014 Studio MEJA, addition of Sally Port, estimating cost 2024.
Okay, so I did, as everyone asked me to do, I got in touch with Eric Army, who is
Studio MEJA.
what is now Signal Works. It was Studio MEJA. And what you have in front of you is what he provided to me. So I told him that we had, you know, this project, we're looking for a cost estimator, we're looking to determine the 2024 cost of this project. So on the first page, you can see that, I can, you want me to read it? Do you want me to read it, or do you want to just
You can,
kind of go?
yeah, you
over
can go over it, yeah, you don't, I don't know if it needs to be read per word, but,
Okay, so basically, we had
Maybe the
asked
pros and the
for
cons.
either a cost estimator or to determine what the project would be in 2024 dollars. So we do have proprietary use of these plans, and we've paid for them, and they're ours, they're all stamped. So he provided option one, which is cost estimator, to estimate 2024 cost of the 2014 renovation plans. A professional third-party cost estimator would price the 2014 renovation plans in today's dollars and likely include a cost per square foot for any proposed adds, for instance, at Sallyport, and attempt to factor in any deducts, any work that's already done, things that we've already put into the building. So the pros are least expensive option to develop a budget, relatively short turnaround time. The cons are the scope has changed since 2014, so the price may not be representative of current needs. It does not create an adaptable strategy to move forward. It just provides you with a dollar amount, so it doesn't tell you how to go forward. And cost estimators tend to identify top end that should be budgeted versus lowest cost from a competitive bin. Then he provided the second architect discovery, which is more like a facility needs assessment. So the architect and engineers would update the building facility assessment to ascertain current condition of the building and its systems. During that time, they'd also engage with key stakeholders such as the police, the council, and interested parties to capture and prioritize functional needs. They'd then create a conceptual plan showing alternate proposed approaches, including all-in-one renovation, so a complete renovation of the building, or a multi-year capital expenditure option with third-party cost estimates. After that was complete, in a future phase, budget and timeline can be set. So this would be another option instead of just getting a price, going in, looking what's been done, looking at what needs to be done, looking at any of the current standards that weren't in effect in 2014. The pros are they'd identify current state of the facility, incorporate current police department needs and priorities, would present multiple approaches. So if for some reason the cost with what is needed for today is in excess of funds that we have on hand, they would also provide us with a multi-year capital expenditure plan, which we all know is more expensive, but if we had to do that, we would have both of those options. The con would be it would require cost and time for professional services. And then the third one was a renovation redesign, so modifying the 2014 plan. He didn't suggest that. He suggested either option one or two. Two would have been, the one would give us a better idea of what the project will look like today, how to go forward, what the next steps are, and if the cost is prohibitive for us in terms of access to funding, and we had to break it up into smaller projects over a period of time, we would have that plan as well. I can tell you quickly here that just so you'll know, roughly, and don't hold me to it, but option 1 would be approximately between $4,000 and $8,000, approximately, probably closer to 5. Option 2 would be between 35 and 50. And, you know, they'd have to get some subs for that. But we would have in option 2, not only the cost, we'd have a plan for the full renovation, we'd have plans for a multi-year capital expenditure, we'd have a complete facility needs assessment, and that's about it. Sorry, I read a little bit more into it than I had planned, but just to give you a background of what the 2 options are like.
So it would be Signal Works that would be doing this work?
Right, because no one else can use their plans because they're proprietary, right? So
Right.
we have to, they would do this with their own plans. If we didn't use their plans, or we can't have someone else use their plans because they're proprietary, we'd have to go with another architect, get some more plans, and pay for those. But these are already ours, they're stamped, and, you know, so.
Well, we can use the plans if, the way we can use the plans, and it might turn out to be a lot of money, but it would cost us 10% of all the money that we've paid them so far, and for us to be able to use the plans, to give them to another architect and have another architect go over those plans. So I don't know.
Well, it was in the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, so it would be
Yeah.
it would be a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And these are stamped, ready to go, but like you had said before, and I think it was right, it's like, what's different from 14? Well, we don't really know. Plus, we have these things that we've already done, almost $1 million worth of repairs that we have to back out of that, right? And then we have to determine if, you know, if we can, and I think we need to talk about funding for this at some point in the very near future, because, you know, we get different opinions, right? People say, well, if it's $3 million, we have that money in our fund, right? In our, but can we use it? Will our financial advisor allow us to use that money? Because then does it affect our bond rating? So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, I think, in order to move this forward, but.
My only concern is if we go down the route of like an option 2, is, you know, looking at, okay, what are the needs, you know, has anything changed? It
Right.
sounds very similar to what we just did with Tecton for a renovation. And I would still stress that I think if that's the route we're going to go down and spend even more money on something, then they would have to have experience in public safety design. I just can't see us going down that route again. And
If it's a full renovation?
either way, well, yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, looking at the building needs facilities, right?
Yep.
So look at the current state of facility needs, you know, incorporate current police department needs and priorities, would present multiple approaches. And the only con is that it requires more for the professional services, et cetera.
Right.
But having not designed Studio MEJA or Signal Works, having not designed any police stations or worked in public safety, how do they really fully know what are the needs?
Oh, yeah,
From an
they
accreditation
know.
perspective, from all that thing?
They
It-
know, and, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's fine, you
Yeah,
can go.
for accreditation, well, because the chief has been working with him. I mean, he's the one that approved the plan, and he and the previous chief approved the plan, and he's very much in favor of going with this. I mean, I think because he's so familiar with it, and they're so familiar with him, and
That-
the needs that they have. I mean,
But that doesn't give him the background that he's done this before. He's experimenting for the first time, and it's costing
he-
us some money.
no, he's not
Of course
He's not
he is.
experimenting. He's taking a building that needs a renovation, like a lot of people do. And the chief is intimately involved in this. He knows him, he's worked with him, he knows he's not gonna cut corners, he knows he's not gonna, I don't know, I mean, I think that, I know I'm not running again. And I have till November to get this done. And I wanna get something in place that is not going to have another council kick the can down the road another few years. I just can't do that in good conscience, not to the police.
May I? I agree with Doug. I was totally against using Studio Major, but then the chief said, he did say that when he went over those plans, the design that Studio Major made, that was him and Chief Reynolds went over with them and.
Over and over, yeah.
Right, and he basically designed what the chief recommended. So I said, as long as the chief is okay with it, then I'm okay with it. And he's perfectly okay with using those plans to work off of.
Right.
But as far as building a new Sally Port, designing a new Sally Port, I think we should have somebody design it that, like Doug said, has experience building police stations. I think it's okay for us to use Studio Major's plans, but as far as the person overseeing the project and designing a Sally Port and rearranging the cells, I think that should come from a company that has experience with police stations.
Well, when we asked the chief the last time he was here about the cells, and I didn't know what it meant to have upgraded cells, right? But he was very explicit about having it be so that you can't see the person next to you, right? That there's a small opening, that you have a toilet, that you don't have anything that you can hurt yourself with, I guess, right? So those are the newer standards that didn't have the ones we have right now, right? That's something the chief knows about and he wants, and he would that's what they put in, because he would work with them. You know, it's not like they're gonna do something on their own. He's more involved in this than any chief I know, I'll tell you. He's very sure of what he wants and doesn't want.
Oh, well, lucky we have a chief that has a background in
Oh,
construction.
In
we are so
construction, I was
lucky.
gonna say that.
We are so
absolutely.
lucky. And, you know, a Sally Port, I'm fine with trying to figure out how a Sally Port gets on there, but that's something they want, so I'd like to see that be
And they've
part of the
wanted it
plan,
from day one.
you know?
Because of national standards, am I right? Most of the new stations, all along, from going through Connecticut, et cetera, they're up to date on what's required within the station, what's required as far as cells are concerned, and we could keep those old bars for something or other, but they're antiques.
Yeah, I honestly don't know how they became accredited without having a Sally Port.
No, they come in, you know, any arms you have go in, so if there's a confrontation, it helps avoid injury, and to have anything done. And let's say the chief decides, I've had enough, I'm out of here. Where does it leave us? There will be no one there to burp them.
Well, no, those plans would be, we would approve those plans before.
Yeah, but it's
We
still,
would have, that would be part of the plan, and what the chief would want would be in the plan, and we would approve those plans. But what I'm worried about is that we're gonna end up saying, I don't know, I don't wanna do this, and then the next council will say, well, you know, maybe we should do ... And we won't have moved this ball down the field at all. That's just my own personal thing. I mean, I don't know how anybody else feels, but
So what they say about using their plans, that if we use the plans, we have to use them, right?
that's what we,
Yeah.
is that what you found out?
Yeah, that's what
President?
David
And
said, that
don't use
we
it
could have
for-
someone look at those plans, but for someone to use those plans, you can't.
Because they're proprietary.
My only concern is the scope. I mean, he even says it in option 1, scope has changed since 2014, so price not may be representative of the current needs. So my
That's right.
biggest thing is if the scope changes and we go with the cost estimator and say it comes back at 6 million, just throwing money out there,
Yep,
right?
yep.
That may not be the true number, but people are gonna think you can build a police station. Look, happened in Gloucester. They just went through it. They're pivoting for a bunch of different reasons, but they're still gonna commit to 15 million before you
Yep.
remove money for grants. So what that final number looks like, the realization is it's still expensive regardless if you renovate or not. And I think if we're gonna produce a number, we need to produce a number that is more true and reflective of not just $2024, but also to make sure it's in line with the current standards, so we don't
Well,
come back and say, well,
right.
just kidding, it's really 14
Right,
because we
right.
forgot a whole bunch of things.
Which is why he recommended option 2, because option 1, as a cost estimator, provides you with a cost, period. But it doesn't, it takes into consideration today's dollars, but not all the things that we've talked about. And it won't, you know, it might back out some of the costs that we've already expended, but it won't give us a plan. It's gonna give us a dollar amount. So then we get the dollar amount, and I'm just thinking out loud, right? So then you get the dollar amount, and then you gotta get a plan, because you still don't have, you know how much it's gonna cost, but you still don't have the plan, you know what I mean? So I think option 2 might be better for us, because it gives us, you know, and then the other thing is, and I know we'll have to talk about this really, really soon, is, let's say it's $5 million, I don't know. Do we have $5 million in our funds that we can extract without having any cost to the taxpayers? Or do we have to go back to the taxpayers for another dollar amount? Or do we do it multi-year capital expenditure?
I
where
think
we
that's the way
do
it's gonna happen.
a year, like we
Like
move
they always do.
we move the municipal court back.
Right.
That's 1 year.
Right.
Then next year, we put new light, well, we've got the new lighting grants and stuff. There's a lot of stuff we can do, I think.
Yeah. Did you get all the HVAC too?
You got the HVAC grant and the lighting grant, right, which you talked about last week, the 128. We
We
got
got-
the $1 million, right?
I just think if you're talking about multi-year capital plans, you need to have a mechanism that you actually fund a multi-year capital plan,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
otherwise it will be another decade before it's finalized. I mean, it's already been 10 years.
Yep.
And in realization, as everyone's talking about, we need to keep costs down, bleeding this project out over multiple years is gonna incur
I
even more cost. So
I
I think
agree.
before we even talk about a number, we need to figure out what the number is, and then not allow it to be left up to the imagination in the sense of like, well, here's what it could look like, here's what it could. We need to remove the what it could and just say, here's what it is,
Mhm.
with a true escalation schedule, if that is the case, and all other things added in.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, what would you want to do?
I'm just throwing this out now.
Yeah.
What about having Studio Major look at the plans, give us an update on what updated costs based on the plans that I keep calling it Studio Major Signal Works,
Yeah.
but the Studio Major set of plans.
Yeah,
We have-
that would be through option 1.
And then
Yeah.
we can ask Tecton if they can design, the cost to design a Sally Port. And we put the two together and we'll know exactly where we stand.
Do we know if they would work together, though? I don't know how that would.
I don't know, but, I mean, it's worth asking, right? But, so, John, just to be clear, if you get option 1, right, which would be about $5,000 for the cost estimator, it's just gonna tell us how much, minus what we've spent so far, the cost is. And then we'll still have to go back, if we're gonna use this plan, we'll still have to go back to them to get a full plan, right? A
Right.
current analysis.
Right.
So what I'm saying is the cost estimate is included in number 2, right?
But I want like a full breakout,
Well,
because
that's what-
like
that's
kind of
what
what
you-
Tecton produced similar, because I'm just
Right.
rereading the language that he wrote.
Mhm.
And it says will likely include a cost per square, it needs to include a cost for a
Okay.
square foot.
I mean,
If they can't do it, then I understand,
Absolutely
but,
right, I agree with you.
attempt to factor in any deducts for work complete, they
Mhm.
have to factor in deductions for
Sure.
work completed. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't want it to be like we spend 5 to 8K and then it's like kind of missing information that could be important.
Mm-hmm.
And the design factor, I remember the last presentation, just when I kind of have some sense as to what is that 10 to 30% contingency look
Mhm.
like, I'm assuming that's what the design factor is.
yeah.
So just more details and granularity.
Okay, so are you both saying that you would want just cost estimate to give us an idea? Is that what we're doing, or no? I mean, how do we?
So if we just do the cost estimate, we still don't know what other things we need to bring up to code,
Mhm.
right?
Correct.
So is that, I guess I see your point, that is it really worth just doing the cost estimating, but then have to go back and kind of re-quote it again, because now we have to figure out what isn't up to code?
Right, so what it gives you is a cost, but not a strategy moving forward, I guess.
Mhm.
It's the easiest way to look at it.
Right, just gives us a
You know,
ballpark, but we
right.
still don't know, we're still gonna have to go back to the drawing and see what might need to be changed.
Oh, we have to, yeah, because,
Right, but I'm saying, so
Right.
why, so to spend the 5,000 here, it might not even be accurate with,
That's my point.
the only thing they're gonna
Which
be
is your-
accurate with is coming up with maybe a square foot
yes,
price, but
yeah, they get a square foot.
it still isn't gonna tell us what
I don't want anything to do with them.
needs to be changed or,
No, and it, like he said here, the pros of this is that it's the least expensive to develop a budget, right? So it would be strictly for us to develop a budget, and it's a relatively short turnaround time.
did he say the turnaround times for each?
He
He
still
didn't, he
doesn't know
didn't,
it.
no,
No, okay.
I'm sorry. But,
I just want to say, I am opposed to have signal work come back. He has not done any projects like this since he left North Smithfield, and I just feel for him, we're like guinea pigs. He just doesn't know it, he doesn't know, and he doesn't have a background or experience. Whatever experience he got was on Bushy School. Didn't turn out that great. And this idea about year to year, what are we gonna do this year? That's the history of North Smithfield.
well, you know, I asked him to do that because I said, if the figure comes up, and I think Mr. Beauregard pointed it out very well the last time, if it's $6 million, or if it's $10 million for a renovation, minus what we've done, we may have to
Piecemeal.
piecemeal.
Or, I mean, that might be more palatable to the voters too, I guess we, you know,
Yeah, I don't know if we can go back. Do you think we can go back with another vote?
I think you're too early in the conversation there, because
oh,
if-
we're just.
Yeah, no, what I mean by that is, if, say it's 10, right, and this is all speculative, it could be 12, could be 14, could be 8, we don't know.
Yep.
But there could still be grants to offset it. There could be state grants. I mean, Gloucester got what, almost 4 million just for communication and regional dispatch? I mean, those are things that we should be looking at,
Right.
and you know, there's ways to offset these costs. So, you know, just because we're throwing out numbers, what I mean, it's too early, is you don't know if you are gonna go for a referendum, if it's 10, or if it's 5, or if it's 6. So there could be, it could not be the full amount.
You know what, and you're right, but look, I was just pointing out to Mr. Grubb was, the grants only become available to you if you have a project. You just can't say, if we get the grant, then we'll do the project.
Right.
You have to have the project and say, this is our project, and we're applying for a grant.
Well, a little bit I disagree, only because if we use Gloucester as the current example, right, because they're going through it as well, right? They had a grant from the state, and the reason they pivoted from building new to renovating was there was details that you could only use the money, I think, on renovation or something like that. So there's probably some where, like, in that instance, you're probably absolutely correct, John, I believe you in that, but there's probably some grants where you don't probably need to say fully what we're doing. Or maybe there is, but I do think we need to pick and decide. I think this has gone on long enough. And then we just need to move forward.
I think the only way to move forward is to get the cost and to get the plans updated. I mean, how else can we move forward?
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that, because I think we're running the risk of not having any action taken again for many, many months, and then we have an election.
So what would be what would be Signal Works' involvement, as far as how deep is their involvement in this? And I'm a little concerned, and like I said, I'm okay using the plans because the chief was okay, and he helped design them. But how far are we gonna go with this architect who doesn't have any experience building a police station? So how deep are we in with him? Like, once he does number 2, then can we say, okay, thank you very much?
Oh,
and
yeah. Oh, yeah.
We can,
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and I mean, he's looking at his own plans that were approved by the chiefs, right? So it's not like he's putting anything new in there, he's
Right.
not changing it. He's gonna meet with the chief and say, okay, since we went through this, we have to update the cells, we have to do, you know, whatever those things are. Those things are gonna be added to the total project cost, which is
Okay.
gonna give us a cost from what he says. Now, I mean, I can get real specific option 2 for you, if that would be
No,
better.
but we're not
you know,
locked
and-
in with him, is what I'm saying.
Oh, no.
But what do you mean locked in?
Well, if we go with number 2, then all of a sudden, Signal Works is now gonna be our architect to see us through this project.
Well, we're using his drawings, so
Well-
he
Is
would,
then he's gonna oversee the project just like Tecton would have overseen
We
the,
would have to get.
You'd have to get a
the
separate clerk of the works.
Yeah.
yeah.
That would represent us.
because if we're going with.
No, I'm glad you asked that.
If we're going with him, then we have, and we're gonna go and work on his plans, and we're gonna use his plans, and that's him.
Right, but we can say if we don't like his plans, and we don't wanna do anything more with you too, and go with someone else. I mean, we're locked in if we're gonna go with a project that starts right away with him, because those plans are already paid for and stamped. There's no reason to, and
Didn't we
approved by
go
the
in
chief.
part of this first thing with the clerk of the works?
Hmm?
And we had, in one of the projects, I think it's this building, I don't know if Gary remembers, and it was held up. So that man had nothing to do.
Right.
And we were paying him. He was hanging around at the high school.
He was a nice
You'd
guy,
see
too.
him at some of the meetings, and he had a
Felt bad
smile
for
on
him.
his face because he was getting paid every hour.
I remember him, yeah.
Yes, nice guy.
Nice guy.
And he should be a nice guy, he wasn't doing anything. Right? An expensive way to make a friend.
Well, how do we want to move forward, or do we want to move forward on, do you want me to get more information? Do you want to say we're looking more at option 2? You want me to get you, dollar amounts? I gave you a range that he gave me, but it's not exact. Or do you not want to go with him at all and get another architect and pay another $250,000?
So, don't think of this like a council meeting. Think of it like don't be afraid to spitball and throw bad ideas out because.
Yeah, I mean, that, we need to talk.
Right,
Absolutely, and we're not going to all agree. I mean, that's good that we don't. That's why we get a good result.
But, if we do option 2, right?
Yep.
So wouldn't we almost have to go with option 3, because now we're gonna come back and say that, once he goes through the drawings and finds out any changes or any modifications that need to be made, then 3 would be going back and making those modifications,
So 3 is
He's-
from what,
is
Yeah, I see
basically
what you're
2
saying.
and 3
He's saying
together,
it
right?
could include option 2, but if you decide to go forward with the renovation, you're kind of locking yourself into option 3 as well.
Right,
Because as you just said, why would you deviate from him at that point if you're going to approve his plans, which are stamped, and you're just going to end up in the same situation we're in now?
so, I see what you mean. So option 3 includes 2. is
He's
what
saying
it is. So-
it could include it,
Yeah,
but that's
it would
assuming you
have
bow
to.
out, you don't have to go with option 3, but if
Yeah.
you move
Well, it
forward.
does include, it says an architect would modify the 2014 renovation. So this is if we want a renovation,
Right, but you need,
not piecemeal.
no, but he's saying in option 3,
Yep,
it would modify it, but you need to begin with option 2 in order to go with option 3,
Yeah,
which is your
he's-
facility
so
needs
it's all
assessment.
inclusive, right?
he's
An
saying
architect-
it's the first phase of the work.
Right, this would begin with option 2, facility assessment, stakeholder engagement, plus cost estimating of alternative approaches. Then it would transition into updating the drawing set. So a bid set for one or multiple packages of work would be produced. The pros of that would move the project forward fastest, could incorporate option 2 as its first phase, contingencies for alternate pathways can be incorporated into the approach. Example, all-in-one versus multi-year. The con would likely require buy-in up front. Assumptions about scope would need to be made and potentially adjusted after initial discovery phase, and key parties may prefer a more adaptable approach. And that adaptable approach that he's saying is because I did talk to him and I said, if it's too expensive, we've already had our residents tell us that they don't want, you know, a multi-million-dollar project. So I said, if we had to do it, I hate to use the term piecemeal, but if we had to do it, you know, project by project, which we all know is not the most efficient way to do it, but if that was our only alternative, could you provide that in here? And he would do that and get it ready for each section would be bid.
And I think the dollar amount was part of the reason it failed, but I also think that it was not well written.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think if it was written a little bit cleaner and we had
Yeah.
given a little more definity and it filled in some of the gaps that I think from an education perspective, I think it may have been, it could have been something different. We don't know.
Right.
So I think some of it was cost, some of it was too much up to the council with some of the concerns, that there wasn't enough clarity on the question. Even though, you know, we know what bond council said, but my only concern, I'll go back to it on this, is if we're gonna go down the architect discovery, we just did that with Tecton. So if we're gonna go down this facility needs assessment, why not just go back to Tecton and say, remove the addition, which I think they said was there for various reasons, but maybe it can be removed. And is there anything that can be removed because we already did that work? Because they did look at the main base in the program of the building, and then there was the addition and the Sally port and stuff like that. I just hate to see us throwing another $50K, and then we don't know what the cost is for option 3, and
Excuse me.
we may end up with a similar price tag that Tecton was producing, and then what? That's my
Oh,
concern.
well, that's a reasonable concern. Do you
I
want,
think I like that idea.
shall we ask Tecton this similar situation and see what their costs are? And then make a decision between, 'cause I mean, we couldn't possibly go to a third option of architects,
No.
please.
We can't yet. I don't know, I just think now we'll just keep bouncing back and forth. I just think we need to make a decision and go with it because, you know, we keep bouncing, you know?
I know.
If we were gonna go to Tecton, then maybe we shouldn't have poked this one again, you know, because now, you know, I just think we're grasping at straws and we just need to get it done, so.
Well, you're right, but this did kind of just creep in though, because basically it started off with, we can look at their plans, the chief liked the plans, let's get an update on their plans. Now, we're kind of, all of a sudden, they've been worked into being our guy. That wasn't, I don't think that's what the intention was originally.
But if we use their plans, it has
I
to be our
understand.
guy, you know, that's the thing, so if we're gonna look at his plans,
Well, then let's
You
go
know.
with just the cost estimation of the building, let's just go with the.
I agree.
Matt.
5 grand and then come back, and then we can,
Madam President, can, no one, well, we have 2 people, it's one or the other, in the audience, can we ask, at least I'd like to ask one, because he was with this project for a long time, what his opinion is. Can that be done?
What's the question?
Well, we have 2 people there, and I know one has been involved in a lot of projects, and I'd like to know what his opinion is. Because I wasn't on the original, we weren't sitting on the board when all this started, and it got going afterwards. But
well, I don't,
doesn't sound to me, because unless we go with the new company, because the other one will be correcting things, and he's getting his abilities or his practice or background on us, on our dime. And I just don't feel
But Claire,
He
you're
has the
saying,
ability.
Claire, I totally disagree with you respectfully. I think that this plan was completed, it was approved by the chief, it was approved by the people, it was approved by everybody. We had 17, I was the one that was at the very beginning. We had 17 factors of community involvement, Parks and Recs, DPW, everybody was involved, and we had a very comprehensive plan. The
But-
plan was vetted, it was approved by the police, they signed off, they loved it, they wanted it.
But the person that was doing it had no experience.
It did not matter to the police who are in the building.
Now
I'm not
that's
gonna be
insane.
that presumptuous and say, because someone doesn't have the full experience, that they're not qualified. When you have people
Does not
that,
have any
when they
experience.
worked closely with the police to identify every single facet that the police needed back in 2014. People voted on it unanimously. And then all hell broke loose after.
And that,
And
and
then
that
look
could
what
be another
happened.
reason why it failed too, because almost everyone who came and that was in the denial portion of this bond was, it had already been voted, they had already made this decision. So that was, I think, part of the downfall of the bond also.
I
So-
agree too, and I think that, you know, we should have heard loud and clear from people that they don't want a multi-million-dollar project. Whether we agree with that or not, whether we agree with the terminology on the bond, the bottom line is that we heard that loud and clear, 60-40. So we have to honor that.
But this will be a multi-million-dollar project. Just by 2 million, you're in a multi-million. So I think we should be careful of what numbers we're throwing out, because we don't know. But we should also be bracing for the potential that it could be north of 10. It could be below, and it could be more modest and affordable, and I'm not disagreeing with that, but today's prices are all over the place,
Yep.
and they don't seem to be going down, unfortunately. And
And, you know, so I guess my question is, if it is multi-million-dollar, $10 million, then we have to go back with a bond question. And we have been told by people that they don't want that. So I don't think that would be fair of us. Representing the people, we should be listening to the people that we are, we are elected to represent. And they didn't want that. For whatever reason, they didn't want it. And so what we're trying to do, or what I'm trying to do anyway, is provide with an alternatives. And I think Mr. Beauregard hit it, I can't say it enough times, hit the nail on the head. We may have to do this piecemeal, because we've been given a mandate by people, and it's up to us to figure out how to get this done, and with very little cost to them. Right? I mean, that's our charge.
yeah, I'm not against a multi-year plan, but what I am concerned about is that if you don't have it in, like, a strategy in place and a mechanism in place, that plan could fall apart the minute somebody else steps in here,
You're right.
and then we'll be
Yeah.
complaining about the police station by the time
10
my
years
kids have
from now.
grandkids.
Yep.
So, like,
That has to be in place. You're right.
you know, we need to think about this from all angles, and I still think the funding of it, like, you know, going out to referendum is still a little early in the conversation, because we don't know what grants may be out there. We don't know other funding sources that could be out there, if we could use part of the fund balance, if there's other things that we could take advantage of. So I think we should keep, like, obviously we may have to go out, we may not. So I just think before we get there, we need to figure out the cost. And I'm fine with bringing it up to $20, $24, but I still think there's going to be blind spots that we're going to find out down the line. And that's my other concern as well.
May I speak? Claire, just for clarification, just to set your mind at ease, Paulette's not exactly wrong, because the studio major plans were done with the chief and the current chief and the former chief. And they're the ones that walked the building with studio major and said, this is what we want, this is what we want. And he did the plans based on what they wanted. So he didn't just come up with this idea. So he based it based on what they wanted. So the plans themselves are okay. And the chief even agreed that those plans are okay. Where we're coming into a problem is, some of us are saying, yeah, we want to use the plans, but we don't want Studio Major, who has no experience, looking at overseeing the project. And now we'll run into a problem that, well, it's their plans. If we're going to do it, then they have to oversee the project. So that's where we're at. But the plans themselves are okay. They're different from Tecton, but the chief is satisfied with those.
So then why did we not move forward with the plans 10 years ago?
Because every time they
I asked it
opened up
last
the door,
week.
it fell
Well, no,
apart.
I mean, I know the chief was saying how, that he was okay with the plans and stuff, and he helped design them, and I asked last week, and I never really got an answer. But, if the plans are that good, why did we engage Tecton? Why did we go forward in other areas? And there's probably reason why, but it just seems like it's a big pivot now from what the rhetoric has been 6, 7, 8 months ago. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around
Well,
that.
it would happen, again, it's like it happens in every political situation. There were different people, there were different councils. There was the Public Building Improvement Committee, the PBIC, that was summarily dismissed and started over. So, I mean, and that's the risk we run. And I think we want to take some action that will solidify a project that we can hang our hats on and say, it wasn't exactly what we wanted, but we worked it through. And Doug, to your point, including funding, right? I think we got to move on this, folks. I really do. And if all we want to do right now is look and see what the 2024 cost is, knowing full well we're going to have to get another game plan, right? I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Can I talk? I mean, just listening to this going back and forth, can't you ask this architect company? I mean, he is a legit architect.
Yes.
And they all sub certain sections of a project out. So now, if you're going to throw the Sallyport situation in there, coming from my background, the same as John's, I want somebody who's going to give me a design of a Sallyport that is a professional in designing Sallyports. So if I was this gentleman, I would then sub that out
Sure.
and say, this is what we're adding this to the project. Can you give me a cost on the Sallyport? Which is, the standards change yearly. And I'm sure that the chief would be more than happy to help out and guide that person, and so that you can now have a cost estimate for the plans that are already prepared in the upgraded plans in the Sallyport. I mean, everybody subs it out. This guy doesn't sit behind a magical wand and wave the wand and he comes up with a number. And Tecton does the same thing, and Tecton's high. I mean, we all know Tecton's prices are skyrocketing.
Yeah, and you're right, Mr. Pendergast, in the option one, it does say a professional third-party cost estimator would price the 2014 renovation. In today's dollars, they would likely include a cost per square foot for any proposed adds, i.e. Sallyport, and attempt to factor in any deducts for work already done, and give us, the deliverable would be a construction estimate. So
I think you're going to get a real close number with the estimate, with what you already have, and adding that to the project. That's going to at least, that unknown's going to be taken away somewhat,
right.
because now it's going to be part of the number you're looking for. Just my thought.
No, I don't disagree. I think it's the cheaper of the two options, and I think we should get a sense of what the cost is going to be. That is the piece of information that's missing. I just think before we move forward with another $50,000 study, we need to, I think, really figure out what we want to do from a renovation perspective.
So, did I tell you what they were? He said.
You said 35 to 50, and then there was no price for
That's
renovation
option
redesign.
2. And option 1 was between 5 and 8.
Yeah,
5.
and I'm not discrediting Eric by any means. I just wanted that to be clarity. But like, because he is an architect, but like, you think, said another way, like, I was thinking about it, like, there's different types of surgeons, right? There's foot surgeons and then there's cardiovascular surgeons. If you had a problem with your heart, you wouldn't go to a foot surgeon. They're both surgeons. Both can they both can operate just fine. But, there's sometimes, there's a reason you go to certain ones for certain reasons. So,
Yeah, and I
that's
think-
just kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that statement more if it hadn't turned out the way Mr. Beauregard said, which is really true, that it was a bottom-up project. It was meeting with the chief, meeting with Chief Reynolds, meeting with the captain, meeting with everybody, and the other buildings too, by the way. I mean, that was all part of that same Public Buildings Improvement Committee. So it wasn't like somebody designed and gave it to us. It was somebody that sat with us and designed it to our specific needs, and it was approved. So.
But just to Doug's point earlier, what you were saying about why we end up going down the road that we did. As far as what we're doing here tonight, I still believe 100% that we need a new police station. All we're doing here is we're making the best of the situation that the voters gave us, the situation that they don't want the new police station. So when I say Tecton's plan is good, what I mean is it's good for what we have.
You mean signal work?
Signal work, yeah, right, I'm sorry. There's so many
I know.
architects,
Well, they changed their name, so
been
it
a
used to
few
be
of them.
Studio.
Studio MEJA. So when I say their plan's good, and why it didn't work out, it was because at some point along, they realized that we need a new police station. We're just making the best of the situation that we were handed. And using those plans, according to the chief, is the best of a bad situation.
Yeah.
Right, I think we need to start somewhere.
Mhm.
Okay, so do we want to look at option one? Is that what we're saying? The least expensive right now, get a cost estimate, and then go from there?
I would be comfortable with
Okay.
that.
Can I just ask you one question, Paula? So this in the scope, the last sentence, said like they typically include a 10 to 30% design factor. Did he say what that meant?
Well,
Is that for the
third-party
new, the
estimate,
third
right,
party?
Yeah. But this would include a Sally Port cost.
Okay.
So I think that's important.
Yeah, I would still like to know what that is, though, the design factor. Because it
But
talks
10 to
about
30%
different,
of what, though? That's
different
not-
user needs, code changes, programmatic changes. I think it's contingency. I think he just lumps it in as one. But it would be good to know how it's allocated out.
Okay.
Because, if it's like 30% because you're going to have to change a whole bunch of things, then, it would be good to get clarity around what could or could not have to change.
So I am not sure I understand. So they would include a cost per square foot. So what we'll get out of this deliverable is a construction estimate, a third-party cost estimator, not him, will do it.
Mhm.
They'll do the 2014 renovation plans, they'll do it in $24. They'll include a cost per square foot for any proposed adds, so that would be the
Yep.
Sally Port, right?
Yep.
And attempt to factor in any deducts, so they would look at, because I told them we've already done the roof, we've already done the sidewalks, we've already done, all these other things, so that will be deducted. And he said they typically include a 10 to 30% design factor for programmatic changes.
Yeah, like,
So in other words, if
What
if
is it?
changed dramatically from the 2014, that's where that 10 to 20, so
or
when
just
he-
how do they plan to break that out even? Because I don't think he's going to know exactly what is changing. I think that's more option two. So what I'm thinking is like, is in my head is, okay, you have option one, you find out the cost, there's 30% design. He's like, well, maybe the plans need to change. You'd know better if you go to option two.
Right,
So then we go to option two, and now you're looking at all the things that change, and you're trying to get into that 30% design, but now you're getting a more real number because you're reconciling and
Well, that-
reworking the plan, and
yeah,
then you
that-
move forward. That's,
yeah.
I think he's trying to layer this approach so you move into it, but, if you just put design factor, that would be like if somebody put like 40% contingency, and you're like, well, what's the contingency? And he kind of spells it out, design changes, et cetera, but just would be good to know what that really means, to Kim's point too.
I will get that info.
And then timelines,
And tell me-
timelines.
All right, so are we approving moving ahead on option 1, contingent upon how the 10 to 30% is allocated and a timeline being provided, or no?
No, I think you can move forward on others can speak up, but I think you can move forward on a cost estimate. I just would like to see a little more,
Well,
Yeah,
I'm
like when I was
sure-
saying, like he's gonna, like said, like we could deduct, like, what's the
Right,
wording
okay,
he
yeah.
used? And he probably
Well,
will, but it's just likely
Right.
and,
Well, this was again, just to give us an idea of things.
Right.
So I'm sure
Yeah.
they'll provide us with.
just want some
a
clarity.
pro- a more professional proposal. This is just like, these are the things you could do. I
No,
think.
it just would be good to see how it plans to be split out, other than
Yeah.
it's just fluff in a budget, which is probably what it will end up being, but it just would be good to know kind of where he sees, or where the cost estimator could see some of the changes. And if they don't know, then I guess that's a conversation for him.
Okay. Let me see again. What did I tell you for that option 1?
4 to 8,
4 to 8,
so I
okay.
would assume 8,
48,000.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Now,
option
guess-
2 was up to 50, okay. 35 to
And
50,
nothing for the other.
nothing for option 3.
and we do have money. I got it from the finance director of what's left. But do you want to vote on, do you want to?
Yeah, so,
do this and then I'll-
so I'd like to make a motion to approve Signal Works with a cost estimator.
Is that a motion, or do you want me to make a
Yeah.
motion? I'll make a motion to approve Signal Works Architecture of 11 Aleppo Street in Providence to provide the town of North Smithfield with cost estimation for 2024 cost of the 2014 renovation plans of the police department, not to exceed $8,000.
That's a motion. Is there a second?
Second for discussion, there was talk about the Sally Port, and I know the DPW director even brought it up. Who's going to design that plan? Or is it included already? Because
Well, I
wasn't
think
that
he's-
discussion the last time, is it wasn't,
I think
There was
it's gonna go
conversation
to a
around it.
third party, right, so it probably won't be in this, I would assume it's not gonna be in this estimate, right?
No,
Right.
he's,
so if it's gonna be included, who's
Well, if it's
designing
in,
it?
we'll just have to, if it's in there, he's gonna let us know specifically that it's in there or it's not in there.
Right, okay, that's fine, just want
Okay.
clarity. We've had a couple different conversations, so.
Because it does say add-ons.
it does say, yeah, it does say ads,
Oh, yeah,
and it does say Sallyport.
cost per square foot proposed, yeah.
So it may be just the cost of what a square footage would be of a building or garage, if you will, for lack of a better term, of certain square footage without a design. It won't, he's not gonna design it, he's gonna
Mhm.
tell you what it would cost.
Right, but it's more than just a garage. It's,
Yeah, I know, but I don't, how do I explain it? I mean, he
He-
knows,
he'll
he
know.
knows
He should
what
know.
it is.
He should
Yeah, but
know.
I mean, I don't know what it
if he
is.
doesn't, he's going.
Yeah, that's, well, I would agree with you on that.
And in the cost estimator, I know some of the proposals we've seen from different architectural firms that have, they have escalation built in and stuff like that. I don't know if that is, I didn't see it in here, maybe I just overread it. But if there is an option to have that, especially if we're talking about multi-year, it would be good to know.
Oh,
Like, I think, Hallowell, they were using 5%. I know I've seen between like 5 and 7% on some things. So it just would be good to know if that's
Okay.
possible or if that's the next step.
okay. Okay, that's it. I have the other information left, I think. That's all.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call. Let me do it. You were gonna do it?
No, go ahead.
John, Ms.
Yes.
Biragad? Claire?
No.
Doug?
Yes.
And yes.
Oh, yes, for me too.
Oh, sorry, Paul.
Okay, so I want to go to the remainder of the bond, just so that we know we can, so I asked Anthony to give me, as of today, and he said, we've only had one expenditure since the last one. After updating the spreadsheet, the new number is, we have spent $791, $91,800 on the police station. We have $445,946 left to spend.
Okay.
495, you said?
445,946.
And just for your own and for everybody's information, with that $1 million grant that we got, we will be receiving the first $333,000. It's gonna come in 4 payments of $333,000. However, we have to spend the whole $1 million to get that final,
Gotcha.
So we're not that far off.
yeah.
No, we're not.
So at very least, we'll get,
And that
you know,
last,
2/3.
that
Yeah.
last 85 is included in this number already?
The last 85 is included.
Okay.
Yes.
So if we stopped right now and didn't spend another penny, we would get 3/4 of it.
Correct,
But,
which is still good,
right.
but I think we can probably end up spending that.
Yeah, I mean, this, yeah.
Which will give us the full $1 million, which
Correct.
is excellent. Okay. All right.
All right, next meeting.
Oh, my goodness.
You know, I think we did a great job when it comes to, it was important that we stayed in this position, because when the renovations were going on with the trust,
Oh, yeah.
we were able to pay invoices and authorize work right away. But now that that's over, I think we should start thinking about putting a committee together.
Yeah, and I think we just need to make sure that we meet with them more regularly, because we just weren't getting any answers, and it was taking
Right.
too long, you know, to get stuff back to us. So if we do that, I just think we just need to have more updates.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Because I think we've come pretty far to have it just start,
Right.
you know, falling off.
And it was the way to go when we were dealing with the
Yeah.
renovations.
Yeah.
It worked out well.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But it's like we're moving into a new phase now.
We hope.
Okay. So, a couple of weeks? 3 weeks?
Go, I wouldn't go 3.
Would not go 3? 2 weeks? Right,
Well, will they have that? You want to,
yeah, they
You
could
wanna do that?
probably have that in a couple of
Yeah.
weeks, I would think, right? Yeah.
Do you want to just ask them, and
Yeah.
then we can kind of
Yeah.
send that out, and then come up with a date?
Okay, unless you want to just tentatively, and if we have to push it, like, so we're the 24th right now, we could, does Wednesday work? Like, so that'd be the 8th? So we don't have to worry if we do it on a Wednesday, because there's nobody in here.
I think
for
there
that.
is a sewer commission meeting that night.
Oh, really?
Because we were going to meet as the groundwater committee, and there was a group here. So
How about the next day, then, the 9th? Do we
I think
know?
there's planning that night.
So, let's see.
have the conference room upstairs.
But we can't stream it.
And then the 15th, how's that?
Pardon me?
15th, is that way gives them a couple of weeks?
I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do that.
Okay.
How about the 7th, which is a Tuesday? Is that a bad day for people? That's bad for you though, right?
It's-
Tuesdays?
Tuesdays for a couple, yeah, they're
It's
bad.
Too early in the month for me.
Um,
I mean, unless we just do it on our council meeting on the 20th.
Makes sense.
Do you want to just have that one item on the agenda for the council meeting on the 20th? Oh,
Sure.
no, you're not here.
Oh, I'm not here, but, no, well, that's all right.
No. Well, why don't you ask him when
Alright.
he can do it, and then we'll try and figure out a date, and then
Okay.
that way we don't have to try and guess and see when he'll have
We
it
can send
done.
out, see who's available. Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
because it will just be to review that, right?
yep.
Okay, so we'll, next meeting will be, announced.
To be determined.
Yep.
Okay.
Did you want to open the meeting up, or?
So that's up to you.
Does anyone want to make a motion to open the meeting up for any public comment, or?
Yeah, that's fine.
No one,
No,
we all
It-
nobody,
it-
they don't
it-
want to, I don't think.
You don't, Mr. Grubb, you don't want to know?
I would like to ask a couple
Oh, you
questions.
do?
Okay.
Okay.
So, someone make a motion to open up the, meeting for public comment?
So
Second.
moved.
And
Yeah.
Oh, Claire said second, so.
we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call. John?
Yes.
Claire?
And I understand that.
Yes, for me. She said, you said no?
Mhm.
She said no.
Yes. for
So
me.
yes for me, and,
Okay,
Okay.
and Paulette, yes, okay.
Thank you.
sorry, I was translating.
Yes, please.
Why is it no?
It could be just my perception, but I continually hear that the Sally Port is a high priority item, and I always like to look for high priorities. I wish we would put things in more priority order. But the question occurred to me, do we have to do any of the renovations, and can we just contract a Sally Port from Tecton, build it, and then continue with John's thought that we could do renovations next year and the year after, if that's the highest priority. But I think priorities are important.
Personally, I think that a Sally Port is, without a Sally Port, it's a non-starter as far as I'm concerned. You need a Sally Port.
Yes.
I'd be happy to explain why.
That's what I was asking, whether we could just do the Sally. Why you had to do all these renovations from 2014?
We're gonna get a number first, and then maybe that might be the way we end up going, but we're gonna get this number first.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you, Mr. Grum.
Thank you.
Did you want to speak? Okay.
Really? I don't care.
It's open, yes or no?
No.
Okay, sure, okay. All right, we're going to close the public comment. We have to do roll call for that.
Oh, we could do all in favor, probably.
Huh?
Probably an all in favor.
All right, all in favor to close the public comment? Say aye.
Aye.
And then a motion for the meeting to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.